Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Oleksandr Usyk and Daniel Dubois have been ordered to negotiate a deal within 30 days, otherwise a purse bid will be held. Daniel Dubois, the WBA mandatory challenger, he's currently the regular title holder, as it were, with Usyk, the WBA super champion. So there had been all sorts of talk about maybe Usyk would face Deontay Wilder or other fighters, but the WBA has said no. We have this mandatory, hasn't been fought since 2018. You need to defend that belt against our mandatory challenger. So see here on screen, so the WBA making public its resolution. So a number of interesting things here in the little article that they've posted about the resolution. So besides the 30 days to negotiate, they do touch on another couple of interesting things about Daniel Dubois' knee injury in particular. Remember, he faced Kevin Lerena in December and there was some ACL damage, and at the time it was talked about he might be out of the ring for at least 6 months. So they say here Dubois suffered the knee injury in his most recent bout last December 3rd against Kevin Lerena. Despite winning, he came out of the fight hurt and having difficulty walking. Speculation, of course, from fans that would he be ready should the Usyk fight come his way. It has now, and the WBA reports that the WBA sent a request for a health report to Dubois and his team, which was received on Thursday, March 30. The report, signed by London-based physician James Whitacase, says Dubois is ready to do any physical activity, run, carry weight, and feels no pain in his knee. And if an agreement is reached for Usyk and Dubois, it says here, if it's not reached by May 2nd, either side refuses to negotiate, the WBA would send the fight to auction with a split of 75-25, and the 75 is for Usyk, 25 for Dubois. So an interesting update, and I guess out of all the fights that may have been in front of Oleksandr Usyk after Tyson Fury and his undisputed fight with Usyk didn't happen, Daniel Dubois was one that was lurking there, and I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. There's other bigger fights people may have wanted to see. Maybe Joe Joyce versus Oleksandr Usyk, Deontay Wilder. Obviously other names that would come into the mix too, but actually Daniel Dubois, not a bad name, especially as it's a mandatory, and he has to fulfill his mandatories to hold on to the titles. And for me, there is just enough intrigue here that I'm quite interested. One, for the fact that you've got Oleksandr Usyk in his mid-30s. He has been slowing down a little bit in recent years, and sometimes at the top level, it's just small margins that make the difference. And in Daniel Dubois, you've got a bit of a flawed fighter who looks a little bit frail at times, but the guy can punch. And as we saw against Kevin Lerena, he was down on the canvas, that weird knee injury, taking couple of knees, all that sort of stuff to give himself a bit of time with the knee injury / knockdown. And it was dramatic. We saw him against Joe Joyce a few years ago, which he's been working back from the loss in that fight, where he was basically outpointed on the back of a jab, and that basically busted up his face. So it's kind of a fight where I could see Daniel Dubois, with the puncher's chance, actually having some success, but at the same time, Oleksandr Usyk, with the way that he fights and trying to, make the big, bulky Daniel Dubois work, I could see him wearing down Daniel Dubois and even stopping him. So it is one of these really interesting fights that you kind of think Usyk is certainly the favorite, but it's not a complete lock, but it should be, but it's not. And that's why I kind of like this fight, and it is intriguing to me. 75-25 if there is no deal reached. I mean, let's face it, there's probably going to be a deal that's going to be heavily favoring Usyk anyway. So, I mean, I would think that Frank Warren and BT, even if it goes to purse bid, do they really care? Because they'll probably put on a decent offer. You've got Oleksandr Usyk, who's with K2. They've worked with Top Rank previously. Maybe they'll end up doing a deal with Top Rank in Queensbury. The US rights go to Top Rank, and the fight might be in the UK, where it probably makes the most money at the moment, given that Ukraine is off the board for other reasons. I could see that happening. 20,000 at the O2, that sort of thing. and, it's probably a decent fight night. Needs to have a good undercard. I don't mind it at all. And given the fact that there's not a lot of big heavyweight fights happening at the moment, not a lot of fights we actually want to see, this has some intrigue. Daniel Dubois is not a chump. He's got some shot in the fight, but Oleksandr Usyk would probably come through and prove his class again. What do you make of the fight? So Daniel Dubois, meanwhile, he said on social media, "Time to get what I've been working for my whole life. Usyk, you're a good champion, but nobody has hit you like I will. See you soon." Hashtag and the new. I think people do forget sometimes Oleksandr Usyk has a pretty decent chin. He's taken some good shots from the likes of Murat Gassiev, Anthony Joshua, others at cruiserweight as well. Even a few decent shots from the likes of Derek Chisora. Michael Hunter, he seemingly is the loser in this situation. He said on social media, "Messed up my fight with Daniel Dubois. Tyson Fury, let's go." That's not going to happen, but feel for Michael Hunter a bit. But Daniel Dubois, he'll be looking to get whatever deal. I'm sure he'll take the short end of things. I mean, and I guess the ultimate irony is he lost to Joyce a few years ago, needed to have a decent rebuild. It's been mostly pretty careful matchmaking so far, so it's a massive step up from where he's been fighting. You think the likes of Bogdan Dinu, Joe Kusumanu, and then Kevin Lorraine are also added into that mix, then stepping up to Oleksandr Usyk. It's a big step up, but the ultimate irony, and maybe it's a little bit backwards, is Joe Joyce has not had a full shot at any of the sanctioning body titles yet. Daniel Dubois sliding in here. So, you got to credit Frank Warren, his promoter, for putting him in position. Joe Joyce obviously had a big fight against Joseph Parker, but he has not had a full title shot at this point, just fighting for an interim belt. Obviously, Daniel Dubois, with his secondary title, having this fight could actually eliminate it down to one belt. Well, the WBA says these things, but we'll see what happens. But I don't mind the fight. If it happens, it happens, and, I'll be watching. But if it doesn't, well, I'll be interested to see who's next for Oleksandr Usyk and also Daniel Dubois. But they say Dubois is healthy, ready to roll. I don't mind it. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.